It's Thanksgiving dinner, and somewhere between the mashed potatoes and the pumpkin pie, your grandfather leans back in his chair and tells you the story you've heard 100 times before. How he built his own house with his bare hands in 1955. How it cost him the equivalent of what you spend on a decent used car today, and he worked a regular job at the factory, came home, and spent evenings and weekends laying bricks, hammering nails, and running electrical wire through the walls he'd just framed. And you sit there, scrolling on your phone, under the table, looking at houses that cost $700,000 for a place that desperately needs new flooring and has a kitchen from 1987. You're making more money than your grandfather ever did, even adjusted for inflation, and yet the idea of owning a home feels about as realistic as buying a private island. What the hell happened? The gap between then and now is so wide, you could park an entire subdivision in it. Let's break down exactly why your grandfather could roll up his sleeves and build himself a piece of the American dream, while you're stuck, hoping something in your price range pops up that isn't a condemned shed in the middle of nowhere. In 1950, the average house in America cost about $11,000. That sounds impossibly cheap until you remember that the median household income was around $3,000 a year. Do the math, and you're looking at a price-to-income ratio of about 3.7. That meant if you saved diligently, you could own a home outright in less than 4 years of working. Today, the median home price is hovering around $417,000, while median household income sits at about $83,000. That's a price-to-income ratio of just over 5. But that ratio doesn't even begin to tell the whole story, because we're talking about a fundamentally different economic reality. The post-war boom created this perfect storm of affordability. The government was practically begging people to buy houses. The GI Bill, passed in 1944, offered veterans low-interest mortgages with terms that would make modern lenders laugh you out of their office. We're talking interest rates of around 4%, down payments as low as $300, and monthly payments that often clocked in between $60 and $80. For context, that's less than what many people pay monthly for their streaming services today. Also, the entire construction industry was operating on a completely different model. Developers like William Levitt pioneered mass production techniques for housing. Levittown, New York, became famous for building 17,000 homes using assembly line methods. They'd have teams moving from house to house, each specialized in one task: foundation, framing, roofing, plumbing, electrical. It was efficient, fast, and it drove costs down dramatically. And then there was the land itself. America, in the 1950s, still had vast stretches of undeveloped land surrounding cities. You could buy a plot on the outskirts of town for next to nothing, and there wasn't a homeowners association within 50 miles to tell you that your mailbox was the wrong shade of beige. The suburban sprawl hadn't happened yet. This combination of factors created an environment where regular people, not just the wealthy, could build wealth through home ownership. Your grandfather was standing in the right place at the right time when the entire system was designed to make home ownership accessible. Let's see why you're basically screwed compared to your grandparents when it comes to housing. In 1960, the median house cost about $11,900. Adjusted for inflation using 2020 dollars, that 1960 house would cost about $104,600. Except the actual median home price in 2020 was $240,500. Housing costs have increased by 129% beyond inflation, while median household income has only grown by 39% in that same period. Translation: houses have gotten way more expensive way faster than people's ability to pay for them. In 2025, to afford the median-priced home, you need an annual income of about $166,600. The median household earns $74,580. That means the average American household is earning only 45% of what they'd need to comfortably afford the median home. Even cities that used to be affordable are getting crushed. Austin, Nashville, Denver, places that were supposed to be the escape hatches from expensive coastal markets, they're all seeing their price-to-income ratios climb into dangerous territory. Your grandfather could save for a few years and buy a house. You could save for a decade and still be priced out by the time you're ready to make an offer. In the early 20th century, zoning laws were created with good intentions: separate residential areas from industrial zones, prevent overcrowding, and maintain some semblance of urban planning. The landmark 1926 Supreme Court case, Village of Euclid versus Ambler Realty Company, established that zoning ordinances were constitutional. Great, modern zoning regulations dictate how much you can build, how tall it can be, how many units you can include, how much parking you need to provide, what materials you can use, what the building can look like, and approximately 9,000 other requirements that all add cost and time to development. The National Association of Home Builders estimates that regulatory costs account for nearly 24% of the final price of a new single-family home. Developers spend an average of 7 months just obtaining permits before they can break ground, 7 months of carrying costs and exposure to market fluctuations, and costs are accumulating before anything is being built. Then there's the material and labor cost explosion. In the 1950s, construction costs for a modest home ran about $20 to $30 per square foot. Today, that figure exceeds $150 per square foot in many areas, and that's for basic construction. In the 1950s, if you had some basic construction knowledge, a strong back, and a willingness to learn as you went, you could actually build your own house. Lots of people did it. They'd work their day jobs, then spend evenings and weekends constructing their homes, maybe with help from friends, family, or neighbors. Good luck with that. Modern building codes, while certainly making homes safer and more energy efficient, have also made self-building a logistical nightmare. Most municipalities require licensed professionals to sign off on architectural plans before you can even get a permit. Even if you navigate all the regulatory requirements, the cost of building yourself has skyrocketed. For an 1,800 square foot home, you're looking at a minimum of $135,000 in materials and subcontractor costs alone, assuming you can do some of the work yourself. And that's in a cheap location with basic finishes. The romantic notion of building your own home, of literally constructing your piece of the American dream with your own hands like your grandfather did, has been regulated, complicated, and priced into near impossibility for the average person. Young adults who grew up in families that owned homes have help with down payments from their parents. Those who grew up in renting families don't. The divide deepens with each generation, entrenching economic inequality in ways that are difficult to overcome through wages alone. Multiple surveys show that large percentages of renters believe they'll never be able to afford a home. That sense of hopelessness affects everything from career decisions to family planning to mental health. When homeownership feels impossible, the idea of putting down roots, building community connections, investing in a neighborhood, all of that becomes harder to justify. Is the dream of homeownership dead for anyone who wasn't lucky enough to buy before 2010? Not necessarily, but fixing this requires systemic changes, not individual hustle. So yeah, your grandfather built his own house for what you'd spend on a used car today. And no, you probably can't replicate that. But understanding why this happened, the policy choices and economic shifts that created this gap, that's the first step toward building a future where maybe your kids won't be having this same conversation at Thanksgiving dinner 30 years from now. Subscribe if you want more content breaking down personal finance and the economic realities of modern life. And drop a comment letting me know what you think. Is homeownership still part of the American dream, or has that ship sailed for our generation? I'll see you in the next one.